Have you always dreamed of becoming a Fulbrighter, but didn't really think it was something you could achieve? Or perhaps you have already been granted a Fulbright Award and now you would love to see other talented people in your life applying for it as well. Or maybe we're in the process of applying for a grant right now, but are unsure about what constitutes a great application. Well, then worry no more. This episode of the Fulbrighter podcast is exactly what you need. We're celebrating our 10th episode with a special treat for all of the many aspiring Fulbrighters out there. Today, we have the honor of hosting the amazing people at the Institute of International Education, the IIE, who make sure the Fulbright program continues to thrive worldwide. So here is a warm welcome to Jordanna Enrich, IIE Senior Director for the Fulbright Scholar and Student Program, Kristina Stulic, IIE's Director of Academic Placement, and Lora Seery, IIE's Director of the Fulbright U.S. Student Program. In this conversation, we'll discuss the best practices for people who are applying for a Fulbright Award, whether they are in the United States or elsewhere. We'll cover both the scholar and student programs, and we'll also hear personal tips from other Fulbrighters to help anyone who's interested in applying and getting a Fulbright Award. I am Gabriele Jimenez, journalist and community manager of the Fulbrighter platform, the exclusive network connecting Fulbright alumni and grantees worldwide. If you're a current grantee or alumni, head to fulbrighternetwork.com to create your account. And if you're thinking about applying for a Fulbright, keep listening. This episode might just convince you to do so. For the first part of this episode, we'll have Jordanna talk to us a little bit about Fulbright and its origin and purposes. So let's get right into it. Hi, Jordanna. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. So, for the people who may never have heard of it, can you tell us in a nutshell what the Fulbright program is and what kind of scholarships and grants does it offer?
Sure. The Fulbright program is an international academic exchange program that is celebrating its 80th anniversary this year. It's a program that supports peaceful relations between the United States and other countries around the world. It's also a program that drives innovation and produces incredibly impressive alumni, including Nobel laureates and heads of state. The program offers scholarships for students and scholars at all career levels, including those pursuing graduate degrees, those focusing on independent research, and for scholars who want to teach at graduate levels, as well as opportunities for professionals. So it's a huge program, which is why there are three of us from IIE here to speak today so that we can make sure we're covering all the different components for you as we talk about Fulbright.
So, as you were saying, the program has been having really talented people over the years. Why do you think people should consider participating in the program?
This program really provides life changing transformational experiences for our participants. Students and scholars from around the world are able to come to the United States, engage with students and faculty on U.S. campuses, and experience life and culture in the U.S., which is especially meaningful right now as the U.S. celebrates its 250th birthday. And our U.S. alumni report developing valuable skills and expertise while on their Fulbrights abroad that help them advance in their careers. And the networking opportunities that are available to Fulbrighters are immense. So, our U.S. student and U.S. scholar cohorts from last year just reported that they connected with over 250,000 individuals collectively while on their Fulbrights. So, this is a really great network to join. Other fellowship programs may provide purely academic programs, but Fulbright really provides both that academic and cultural experience with a lot of support provided to individual participants. So when you become a Fulbrighter, you are supported and you become part of a network of nearly 450,000 Fulbright alumni, which is really powerful.
Wow, that's a lot of people. Um, and as I understand, from what you were saying as well, there are scholarships for students as well as for scholars. Can you tell us a little bit more about who is a good fit for the program? I think there is a general view that it's mostly a program for scientists or people who are really into their academic research. But I'd like you to tell us a little bit about, who is a good fit for this program.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because within the US scholar community, we often hear people say that they thought Fulbright was only for those in the humanities. So, it definitely varies, but what's amazing about the Fulbright program is its variety and breadth. So, it's open to students and scholars in all disciplines. So, this can span from entrepreneurship to chemical engineering to the arts. So there really is a Fulbright award or opportunity for people at all career stages and in all fields of study. And we're looking for lots of different types of people to participate in this program. So we really want to encourage everyone listening today that there is likely a Fulbright opportunity that fits your profile and your interests. And we're going to talk a little bit more about how you find the right opportunity for you.
Great. So that sounds like everybody who's listening can actually maybe find a good award for them. We did talk about finding the best award for you. But before we get into that, I'd like to play our first Fulbrighter tip of the day. So, our Fulbrighters were invited to share audio notes with us with their tips for how to make a great Fulbright application. And this one was an advice sent to us by Rachel Barron from the US. She was an English teaching assistant in both Belgium and Morocco. So let's hear what Rachel has to say.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I am from the US, and the tips that I have for people who are starting their applications, specifically US citizens applying abroad, are to use the award search feature on the website to narrow down your options. I found this to be incredibly helpful as I was looking for opportunities with Fulbright, and I knew that I wanted to be a teacher. And so, using the award search feature, I was able to look for just ETA options, and I knew that I wanted to teach at a university. And so, I clicked that, and that was really, really helpful in helping me understand what countries were possible and what might be a good fit for me and my skills. If you feel that Fulbright would be a really cool opportunity, you should go for it. Talk with alumni, see if their experiences align with what you're hoping to maybe get out of it. You certainly won't know unless you try.
Thank you, Rachel. That was great. So, Jordana, what do you think of Rachel's advice? And what else, apart from using the search feature on the website, do you think people can do to determine what is the best award for them, since there are so many?
I'm so glad Rachel mentioned this. So, on both the US Scholar and US Student websites, we have many different ways you can filter the award opportunities to find the one that's right for you. So, either by your profile or what you're interested in doing as an activity, whether it be teaching or research or pursuing a study or degree option or a professional project. The other thing I would recommend, in addition to really looking at those search filters and finding the right award for you by combing through the different filters and picking the ones that align, is to talk to alumni. They can tell you about the experiences they had, both on their Fulbright, but also during the application process. And they can help you think through the type of Fulbright Award you might want to pursue. So we have online directories of all of our alumni. And while we don't publish their email addresses, this is a great resource for you to identify who may have done a similar Fulbright as you're considering. So you also likely have some Fulbright alumni in your own network that you can connect with. So our US participants also have an additional resource, which is either a Fulbright program advisor or a Fulbright scholar liaison at their home institution if they are affiliated with an institution here in the US. And they're also a tremendous resource in helping identify the right kind of opportunity. So, again, using those award search filters, if you're a US participant, finding your Fulbright program advisor or Fulbright scholar liaison and talking to alumni are great ways to figure out what's the best type of award for you.
I think that's a great resource and one that not everybody knows it's available. So that's a great tip. And when it comes to US citizens specifically, Jordana, what advice do you have for them in terms of deciding which country they should go on their award? Because, this is a global program, so you have opportunities all over the globe. So, what should people have in mind when deciding which country they want to go for?
Yeah, this often requires a little soul searching on behalf of the applicant. I think sometimes scholars or students have a connection to a certain country that draws them to that specific location, or their research is tied to a specific location. So it might be a little bit easier for them to identify which country makes the most sense. Other times, maybe an applicant has narrowed it down to a region, but not yet decided which country. So, what I can say is it can take some time for you to really determine what is the best country for you. So, we encourage you to start early at looking at all of our opportunities. We offer opportunities in over 135 countries, and each of our award descriptions tries to talk a little bit about what life is like for a Fulbrighter in that country. So, we really want to encourage applicants to read through those resources in addition to talking to alumni as they decide which country they want to go to. The application will require you to make a compelling justification as to why you have chosen this specific country. So it's also good to log in to the application early and start looking at what those application questions are so you can start thinking about how you're going to respond to why you've chosen this country.
Okay, so thank you, Jordana. I think it's definitely a great idea to do some soul searching when you're trying to find out the best word for you. And I think, now I would love to dive into the application process itself. And I understand this can vary quite a lot between programs. So, in order to break it down by program, I'd like to invite Kristina to talk to us a little bit about the foreign students program as well as visiting scholars. So, people from outside of the US who wish to go and study and research in the United States. So, with that in mind, let's invite Kristina Stulic to join in on the conversation. Thank you, Kristina, for being here today.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, before we begin, let's hear from a current grantee from Poland who's currently researching at the University of California and has some insights for our listeners. So, let's play her audio note.
My name is Małgorzata Kurczysz-Gzowska, and one tip I would give to people who are starting their Fulbright applications is to begin early. If possible, try to discuss your proposal with a potential supervisor from the host university. It is also important to show how the Fulbright experience will help you grow academically and build international connections. If someone is thinking about applying but feels unsure, my advice would be simple: just apply. Even preparing the application helps you clarify your goals and your research direction.
I love this audio. Thank you so much. And I think starting early and just applying are very simple, very straightforward tips. So, Christina, let me dive right into your knowledge. How much time do people need to prepare in advance when it comes to foreign students or visiting scholars who want to apply for a Fulbright Award in the United States?
So I love this advice as well, and I do agree. Applying early is really the best bet. But the one thing we need to realize is that application deadlines vary by country and opportunity. So the opportunity for a foreign student could be different than an opportunity for a visiting scholar. So it's really important to review the country website and to figure out the deadline for foreign students and applicants that are applying for degree opportunities. The recruitment generally happens now. So in early spring, for example, the country will start the recruitment process. They'll open applications for opportunities for next year, so next fall of 2027. This is for degree seeking students. For degree seeking students, the selection happens before October 1, and that is to allow enough time to prepare to meet US university application deadlines for the master's and PhD programs. The dates do vary, so I do want to share that it's important to visit the individual country website to determine the timeline for your country. For visiting a student scholar, because they're not enrolled in a degree program, there is a little bit more flexibility. So it's really important to kind of understand what you want to study, where you want to study, finding that faculty and department match is really important, and making sure that department is available for the time that you're proposing your study to happen. So that can happen throughout the academic year. It's not as structured as a degree opportunity.
All right, thank you. So I guess it's really important to inform yourself, as you know, each award will have also its own timeline. But can you walk us through the application process a little bit, Christina? I know it could vary between programs, but what steps that is involved, generally speaking?
So, for applicants applying for the foreign student program, they're generally applying for a master's or PhD opportunity. So, the first step is to really fill out that Fulbright application. As I mentioned, the awards generally open in the spring. So, really do pay attention to those deadlines for your individual country. Make sure you have all the components required for that application. This is really important. So, in general, the application will require a study objective. They'll require your transcripts from all of the universities you've attended before. They'll require 3 letters of recommendation, and they may also require English proficiency. So this is really important that this information is shared with your Fulbright office in advance of their deadline. It's an important criteria for selection, especially for degree-seeking students who will be then reviewed by U.S. institutions. So the Fulbright Committee will need to know that you are qualified for the degree objective that you're proposing to study. For visiting scholars, it's a bit more flexible. They do still require the same components. So, a curriculum vitae is really important. A research proposal is key for a visiting scholar. We need to know what you're intending to study, and whether or not that makes sense for the Fulbright opportunity. If you have already secured a faculty mentor, this is really helpful as well. So, this is a component on the Fulbright scholar side that may differ from the Fulbright student side. Securing that faculty affiliation in advance of the application is something that can also be a positive as well.
And you mentioned, language skills, and this is something that I'm often asked about as well. Do people always need to have perfect English skills to apply? Or does it vary for, student program, visiting scholars? I think a lot of people also assume that when they think of, perfect English, they're thinking about, you shouldn't have an accent or so, let's be realistic here. Who can apply in terms of language skills, right? What do we need in terms of English speaking skills?
So, as you mentioned, Gabrielle, it really does depend on the opportunity. On the foreign student side, they will need to demonstrate English proficiency through a recognized exam. So, for most U.S. institutions, they will require a English proficiency exam like the TOEFL or IELTS. Sometimes individuals can take a Duolingo, and that will be accepted by some, but not all U.S. institutions. We do recommend that they take these exams as early as possible so that there is time for retest if needed. US programs do set minimums. So, it doesn't necessarily have to be, perfect speaking English, but there is going to be a criteria that they require in order for them to be comfortable with that individual being successful in the program. So, for degree seeking students, there is an expectation to have a level of English proficiency. On the scholar side, it's a little bit more flexible, but there is also an expectation to have some sort of demonstrated English proficiency to ensure a successful experience.
And I also know that you mentioned, letters of recommendation. So I was wondering if you can talk to us about who are the best people to invite to write a letter of recommendation for you. Do you have any thoughts on that? Can you expand a little bit on that part of the application process?
Yes. So letters of recommendation for foreign student and scholar are really a key component of that application. So on the foreign student side, we generally recommend that applicants secure letters of recommendation from individuals they know very, very well. I think sometimes applicants get caught up on knowing someone who's perceived to be famous and well recognized, but if they don't know you well enough, they're not going to write you a strong letter of recommendation. So it's really important that you seek letters of recommendations from individuals that you've collaborated closely with, that understand you, have worked with you, can really speak to your skills. Most of our foreign student applicants are on the early side of their career, meaning they've probably recently graduated from their bachelor's degree program. So for them, we require two academic and one professional. So if they've had an internship, they can go ahead and ask their internship supervisor to, to write a letter on their behalf. Sometimes we'll see applicants who have a little bit more experience. So those applicants who have generally more than 7 or 8 years of professional experience, we'll go ahead and have them submit two professional letters of recommendation and one academic. So those are our recommendations on the student side. On the scholar side, it really is the professional, the professional and academic blend together because they usually are academics. So those are individuals that know them well. Collaborating well with them through their department and teaching. So yes, this is really important, and I think a strong letter can really kind of take that application to the next step. So it's really important that they take that seriously and ask individuals who are going to write strong letters on their behalf.
I think that's really good to know because oftentimes I agree with you. People try to go to, maybe people that they know that are really prominent in their field. But if they can't really talk, about personal experiences or professional experiences they've had with the applicant, then that doesn't help a lot. So thank you for explaining that, Christina. And what are the most common mistakes that you see on the application? And what you consider to be the most common reason for rejection, right? Both in foreign students and visiting scholars' cases.
So I think similar to what we were talking about, letters of recommendation, a lot of nominees get hung up on trying to make themselves fit to U.S. institutions based on their reputation and name. So they know a certain institution is famous, and they want to try to make themselves fit to that program. The one thing they aren't aware is really that the U.S. has a wide range of reputable institutions throughout different fields of study. So it's really important to find that right academic fit. They shouldn't try to fit themselves into something that doesn't make sense for them. So it's really important that the study objective match the program that they're applying to, that it makes sense. U.S. institutions can read through this, so if they think they're trying to fit them into a situation that is not the best fit for them, they will not admit them. So I think it's really important to understand the wide breadth of U.S. education offerings, and not really limit yourself just because of what you perceive to be, the right name program rather than the right fit program. So this is something we stress quite a bit, and both on US on foreign student scholar, because I think sometimes a faculty member will say, "I really want to work with so and so," but that may not be the right fit for them. Their research may not align. That individual may not have time. So finding that right opportunity really is key.
I think that's really, really great advice to everyone out there. And before we move on, I'd like to play a message from Eveline Cavalcanti. She's from Brazil and she did a master's in the US as part of the Fulbright Specialist Program. And here is what she has to say.
My name is Eveline. I'm from Brazil, and the most important advice I would give is to develop a clear and authentic project that demonstrates mutual benefit. Fulbright is not only interested in academic excellence, but also in proposals that foster cultural exchange and create meaningful collaboration with the host community. Applicants should show how their project contributes both to their own professional development and to the local context where the research or teaching will take place.
So thank you very much, Eveline, for your audio. Christina, what do you think of Eveline's advice? In your opinion, what do you think constitutes a good application, right, for visiting scholar? And what elements should it have to make it stand out?
Well, I really agree with Evelyn. I think she's really done her homework and probably has had a wonderful experience based on that. For the visiting scholars, they really should demonstrate a specific achievable plan for their time frame proposed. So the proposal should identify that. They should explain the resources and faculty available for that particular institution for their proposed project. They should detail how their home and country primary institution would benefit from this as well. And they should have already identified an individual that they're wanting to work with and that has agreed to work with them as well. It's really important that they explain their project in a way that is not only legible to experts in their field, but also to readers across all fields, who may not be experts. So that's something that they should keep in mind when they're writing out their research proposal. I think this demonstrates an awareness for the preparation that they'll need to make seamlessly into their transition into a U.S. institution for doing their research or for teaching as well.
And is that the same for foreign students, or is it a little bit different?
For foreign student, it's a little bit different. Of course, a well-defined research study proposal is key as well. But for foreign students applying to degree program, it's important that they also have the appropriate prior academic preparation for the field they're looking to study in. A professionally written CV is important for both scholar and student, as well as strong letters of reference, as we talked about earlier. Um, I think we also want to recommend that the individuals are well-rounded. So, in addition to having strong transcripts, letters of recommendation, a CV, they should also show capability to be leaders in their field. Some intangible qualities as well, their resilience, and how this degree will be implemented upon their return. So, those are all components that are looked at for students that are applying for degree programs.
Thank you so much, Christina. It was really, really great insights that you shared with us. So I want to move on to another tip from Fulbrighter. This time we'll hear from Spencer Harrison from the US.
My name is Spencer Harrison. I am from the US and I was a Fulbright English teaching assistant in Kazakhstan from 2023 to 2024. I highly recommend talking to Fulbright alumni from the program you are interested in to learn about their experience and see if it is a good fit for you. Contact information for previous Fulbright awardees can be found on the Fulbright website. I found that all were happy to talk about their experience, and some even offered to read and give me feedback on my application essays. They also helped me avoid some country specific cultural pitfalls. If you are unsure about whether you should apply, just apply. The first time I applied, I didn't get selected, but just going through the Fulbright application process helped me gain confidence in myself and helped change my perspective.
All right, so those were really great insights. Thank you so much, Spencer. Now let's invite Laura Seery into the conversation to talk us through the process for US students. So, as we know, US students and foreign students, the process may differ a little bit. So, Laura, thank you so much for being with us today, for talking to US students and really helping support them through their Fulbright application processes. Before we dive in, well, first of all, welcome. And second of all, do you agree with Spencer on that one?
Absolutely. As we see, first of all, thank you so much for having us. And I think Spencer's advice is spot on. As we see across the board, Fulbright alumni are the best spokespeople for the transformative power of this experience. And so I think an applicant can go to them for inspiration, for country specific advice, and really just for guidance about what they can expect. And also hearing about the impact that Fulbright has had across academic trajectories and professional trajectories of the people who get to participate in this program. As Jordanna spoke about, we have over 450,000 alumni who have taken part in Fulbright over its 80-year history. So while an applicant might not be able to connect with all of them, the likelihood that there is an alum whose interest and country or region matches an applicant's is pretty high, and we would highly recommend that applicants do reach out. I do want to say, I think for all folks reaching out to Fulbright alumni, we find they are incredibly generous with their stories, as your listeners have been with their quotes today. But I do want to caution an applicant to be thoughtful about the questions that they are asking alumni. A more specific question can yield a better result. We find that large, big questions, where should I go? What type of award should I do? Are going to lead to vaguer answers and might not be as helpful. Alumni are incredible resources to talk about their own experiences, the impact of this award, and to help make connections, to give country-specific context. And so I would recommend that applicants do a little bit of that soul searching that we were talking about and that initial research so that they can go to alumni with a specific and well-formed question or area of inquiry so that the alum can be most helpful to them. I will also say that we would really encourage applicants to think about the broadness of this program when they are reaching out to alums. So we would like U.S. student applicants not only to reach out to other U.S. students, but other student alumni, but also to faculty who have had the award, both U.S. faculty who have gone abroad and foreign faculty who have come to the U.S. The Fulbright network is one of the unique characteristics of this program. And so making sure that you're utilizing all the various sides to find the person or people who are going to best help and support your project is a way that an applicant can really get a leg up.
Wow, I think that's really, really great advice, especially because I think most of us tend to go and navigate towards, those more broader kind of questions. And I think you have a really good point. The more specific the question you ask, the better you'll get in terms of the feedback. Um, and I want to, take the time to discuss the U.S. student program specifics as well. So, how much time do U.S. students need before they apply, and what's the timeline? Is it a little bit different from the U.S. foreign student programs? So, can you tell us a little bit about that?
It is, and I appreciate you asking the question. The advice that transfers across all sides of the program, and you heard from the alumni themselves, start early. For the U.S. student program, our application opens in March and closes in October for awards that will take place the following academic year. U.S. student applicants can apply as early as the fall of their senior year of college to undertake an award that would start the fall after they graduate. But we love it when undergraduate students are thinking about a potential Fulbright application throughout their undergraduate career and certainly during any undergraduate study abroad experience. Although I do want to clarify that undergraduate study abroad experience is not a requirement for the application. But we find that the earlier that students can start to imagine themselves in the program, they can start to work that self discovery that we've been talking about into the coursework that they're taking, any international experiences that they might have the opportunity to undertake as an undergraduate, um, and into a larger arc of an application. I will also say that for those applying to do a study or research award, we do require what we call a letter of affiliation, and that is essentially a letter of invitation from a host institution or individual in the country that you're applying to who will be working with you closely on your project. And that can take some time. So it's imperative that study research applicants are starting early to make sure that they are working with their affiliate alongside working on their application essays.
And when it comes to the application process for them, what steps that is involved? Is it similar steps to the ones that Christina shared with us?
I think all Fulbright applications are going to have some core tenets, but when we're talking about the U.S. student applications specifically, the first discernment process that a student is going to go through is if they'll be applying through an institution and therefore working with the Fulbright program advisor on that campus, or applying as an at-large candidate. So this is someone who is not currently enrolled. Although I do want to say that those who are not currently enrolled are welcome to contact the Fulbright program advisor at their most recent alma mater to see if the institution is able to support alumni applications. So there's no preference for an applicant who is applying through a campus or as an at-large status. This is a federally funded program. We welcome all eligible applicants. But that's the first discernment process that an applicant is going to want to go through. Next, as we've heard from Jordanna, for U.S. applicants going abroad, they are going to need to pick the country and award that they are applying for. Fulbright is not a one application fits all for all different countries. We do want to see that students have really made a informed choice about the country and the award that they are applying for. Then, of course, they're going to need to write their application materials. That for us involves short answers, statements of grant purpose, letters of recommendation, foreign language evaluations when appropriate. And I think we might talk a little bit about that later. Um, and then they're going to have a review process before they submit their applications formally. If they're applying through a U.S. institution, the Fulbright Program Advisor will coordinate that with faculty and administrators on their campus to get students' feedback on their applications before they submit. And for those applying at large, we ask that they find trusted sources that could include a Fulbright alumni to help them polish their applications, maybe avoid some common pitfalls like broad stereotypes about the country that they are going to. And then the last step in the application process on the applicant side is to submit their application by the deadline. I do want to say that Fulbright, the U.S. student program, does have one deadline for all countries. So all applicants need to apply by the national deadline in October. And Fulbright takes that deadline very seriously. We do not accept late material. So getting that application in is the last and final step.
So make sure you're not late. That's great advice. I do want to ask a little bit about the language skills because you mentioned it briefly. So, how much language skills do U.S. students need in order to apply for different countries? So, let's say you choose to come to Brazil. Do you need perfect Portuguese, or does it vary from country to country, from award to award? How does it work?
That's a great question. Our award descriptions and requirements are set collaboratively, and so that is where we really see the host country tell us what level of base language an applicant is going to need to be successful to undertake their projects. So I do want to say that in many countries there is no foreign language requirement. We see this specifically with a lot of our graduate degree opportunities abroad. Those programs are taught exclusively in English. So no foreign language requirement is no foreign language proficiency is required. What we do want applicants to be thinking about is first and foremost, even if there isn't a language requirement set by the country, that in the spirit of exchange, which is the core tenet of Fulbright, that all applicants are thinking about um, a conversation or host a level of fluency. Again, this doesn't have to be anything formal, but really thinking about a hospitality level of proficiency so that they can communicate with the communities that they're going to. But this is really going to vary depending on the country that a student is applying for, and we would want folks to check the award description and also to think about the project that they are proposing. So if an applicant is proposing a project for which language would be required, even if they are going to a country that doesn't have a language requirement, we're going to want to see the level of proficiency needed to make sure that the project is feasible. So, in any Fulbright application, really thinking about what the requirements are from the country and also what the requirements are for the project that you are proposing, because feasibility is a big selection criteria for us.
I think that makes a lot of sense. So it's great to know that you don't have to have perfect skills, but that you definitely need to be able to deliver on what you promised, right? So I think that makes a lot of sense. And in your opinion, what constitutes a good application? Now talking about U.S. students specifically, what elements do you think make it stand out and shine?
Yeah, absolutely. When we boil it down, I think a strong Fulbright application hinges on the articulation of the person, that's you, the project, what you want to do, and the place, where do you want to do it? And strong applications are able to knit those three things together so that by the time a reviewer is looking at the application, they say, of course, this person needs to undertake this award in this place, and they're qualified to do it. Because Fulbright has such a myriad of opportunities included under the umbrella of these awards, it really is incumbent on the applicant to lay out for the reviewers that the project that they have put forth is feasible, that they have selected the right type of award for their current academic level and their future plans, and that they have picked the right country for the work. just as Kristina was talking about foreign students and scholars wanting to come to specific locations in the US, I think US students sometimes also have some names or some countries in mind that they've thought about, but we really want to see that you have done the initial research to make sure that the country that you are selecting really does best match up with the work that you are looking to undertake.
And I think when it comes to that, I would love to know if that's one of the most common mistakes you see on the applications, or are there other common mistakes that people should avoid?
Yes, I think that the first common mistake is certainly that we are not seeing a feasible project. If someone is proposing to do a project, as we were talking about with language, that requires a high level of language proficiency, and they are just in a beginner class, that's not going to really translate well to a successful experience. The other thing I think that we advise applicants against is being overgeneralize the country that they're going to. We see sometimes that students make assumptions, and obviously we want to break those down through exchange, but really taking some time to understand the place and the people of where you're going and who will be hosting you can really strengthen an application. The other common pitfall that we see is that students don't think about the scope of their project in terms of the amount of time that they're going to be abroad. So I think there's a perception that maybe Fulbright wants the shiniest, biggest, most elaborate proposal that you could possibly put together, when that is not going to be feasible for a 9-month award. You're not going to build a lab or write 4 books or paint the Sistine Chapel. I don't know how long that actually took, but thinking about your skills and ability, the time that you're going to have abroad, and what are feasible outcomes for that amount of time can really help the review committees see that you are going in with realistic expectations that are going to be attainable throughout your award experience.
I think that's really, really good advice, actually. That makes a lot of sense. It's not always about the grandest, but actually what can be done, really, really be done. Um, and I think, since you've mentioned all of these great tips, I was wondering if you have any special tips as well when it comes to the interview phase. I know that a lot of people, may get a little bit nervous when they're being interviewed, even for a job, or maybe they'll get a little bit shy. Do you have any tips when it comes to, how to tackle the interviews?
Yeah, absolutely. And first, I want to clarify that not all countries require an interview. So this may be part of the review process. For some countries, other countries opt not to have an interview as part of their experience. So when a student is thinking about a Fulbright interview, I think first and foremost, it's important for them to remember that the interview committee is going to have your Fulbright application in front of them. So you, of course, want to be very familiar with the information that you have put forward, be prepared to speak about the specifics that you have laid out in your project proposal. Also, if you are interviewing for a country that does have a language requirement, you'll want to be prepared that some or all of the interview may be conducted in the host country language. So be ready for that. And I think what really makes folks stand out in Fulbright interviews is thinking about not only, again, their background, skills, and experience as it relates to what they want to do, continuing to articulate that this project is going to be feasible for them, but really being able to demonstrate and pull to the forefront for reviewers why they are interested in undertaking this award under the Fulbright umbrella. We are looking for people who show leadership, adaptability, flexibility in a myriad of disciplines, and those who can articulate why they want to engage with a Fulbright opportunity to come to graduate school in the US, to undertake a master's degree abroad, rather than just doing that through the university directly, really show us, I think, some of the insights about the community mindedness that we are looking for in our applicants, those who are really interested in fully embodying the Fulbright mission and undertaking a full exchange experience rather than just an academic exchange experience.
I think that makes a lot of sense, especially because Fulbright is a program that has been around for, 80 years. We're celebrating its 80th anniversary. And so it's definitely something that it's, a little bit different than other programs and its prestige and the way it works and what it's looking for. So it's important for people to also know that when they're applying. Thank you so much, Laura. We really appreciate you sharing your knowledge. And I would like to invite Jordanna back so she could talk to us a little bit about the process for US scholars. So, Jordanna, as we were discussing with Kristina and Laura, the timelines may be a little bit different depending on what you're applying for. So, when it comes to US scholars, can you tell us a little bit about, the application process and the timeline so that people can start preparing?
Sure. Um, so the U.S. Scholar application opens every year in February and closes in September, mid-September, and that's for the following academic year. So as you've heard throughout, we advise applicants to start early and not just thinking about whether to apply, but actually logging into the application so that they can get a feel for the questions and the uploads that we're asking for. So again, our application opens in February, so they have many months to log in and make sure they understand what's being asked of them in the application. The U.S. Scholar application requires a few responses to some short essay prompts, as well as a CV, a project statement that is no more than 5 pages, a syllabus for those who are pursuing teaching awards, and a reference list or bibliography for those who are pursuing research awards. We do have a lot of applicants who propose doing both teaching and research, so they would be submitting both of those syllabi and reference lists. And we do also require a portfolio for applicants who are applying in the arts. We require 2 letters of recommendation and a foreign language evaluation form for any awards that require that you have foreign language proficiency. But we do not have that many countries that require foreign language proficiency. So it is the vast majority of our awards do not require that foreign language proficiency, as English is often the language that they will be doing research in or teaching in that country.
That is actually really good to know. And I think that definitely will help people who were probably thinking they needed to have perfect language skills. So, it really depends of the word. But as Jordana said, oftentimes that is not necessary. So I think that is great news. And what do you think are the most common mistakes you see when it comes to West Scholars applications? What is the most common reason for rejection? When it comes to us scholars, Jordana.
Yeah. So often it's that the application is not well developed. So it's vague or generic and the methodology lacks specifics. So maybe the application does not clearly demonstrate the benefit to being physically present in the host country. Sometimes the applications that are not as strong, they don't clearly demonstrate why Fulbright and why now. Um, as Laura mentioned, sometimes that feasibility and the timeline are overly ambitious. For U.S. Scholar Awards, some people may be pursuing a Fulbright Award for as short as 3 months. They can be pursuing as long as 10 months. But if you are, you need to make sure your project aligns with that timeline that you're proposing so that you're not getting overly ambitious or honestly under ambitious. You want to make sure that you are proposing a project that really aligns with that timeline that you plan to be abroad. We really want our applicants talking about the impact, the outcomes, and the benefits. And sometimes those could be partially addressed or a little vague. And so, again, really focusing on those areas is important. Um, Sometimes I think what's important to remember about a US Scholar application, it is being read by people in your field of study that know it well, but it's often being read by people outside of your field of study. So we want to make sure our applicants are doing it's a tough ask, but we want to make sure they do a good job of um, having a really clear project statement that goes into really detailed methodology for those who really understand that field of study, but it also needs to be understandable to a wide audience. So we don't want a lot of jargon or terminology that only people in that field of study would know. So it needs to be well explained to a broad audience, but also detailed enough so that everyone understands all of the steps you're going to take to undertake this project.
And I think with that in mind, you addressed a little bit what makes a good application as well. I assume that, those are detailed and that take into account the time frame and everything. But I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit about who reviews the applications, who's responsible for that part of the process.
Yeah. So the review process is actually somewhat similar for U.S. students and U.S. scholars. So I'll talk about it a little bit from both lenses. This is a binational merit-based selection process. And so after that application deadline, and as Laura mentioned, we do not accept late materials. So everyone needs to pay attention. The deadline is different for U.S. student versus U.S. scholar. So really make sure you are applying by that deadline. There is a short technical review, what we call technical review or preliminary review, where we just make sure, IIE makes sure all the required components are in and submitted for the application. And then there is a part of the review process that takes place in the US. On the US scholar side, that's called the peer review process. On the US student side, it's called the National Screening Committee. So for US scholars, we do discipline-based peer review meetings. So we recruit experts around the US in various fields of study. They are often Fulbright alum. So we will have a chemistry committee, a law committee, sometimes we'll have multiple law committees because we have so many applicants in that field of study. And so those applications will be reviewed as part of that discipline-based peer review. On the U.S. student side, the national screening committees are organized either by country or region and pull together U.S. academics and professionals to review those applications. After they are reviewed by the peer review or NSC, National Screening Committee, they will receive a notification as to whether they've been recommended for the next phase. So they will find out if they are now considered a semifinalist or a recommended candidate. And after that, they are then forwarded to the host country for review, as well as the Department of State and the Fulbright Foreign Scholarship Board. So so the selection process varies a little bit from country to country about exactly who is reviewing those applications. But what's important to remember is there is a very important component, which is the host country selection process. They typically do not have the funding to select everyone who's been recommended. And so there is another stage of that selection. And then the candidates will find out typically in late spring if they have been selected as a finalist.
That sounds great. I think everybody was a little bit curious about that. So now you know there are several layers of review. But once you get it, what should you expect? So, can you tell us a little bit? Once you got recommended, you went through all of the reviews and you've gotten an award. What should you expect from the experience, Jordanna?
Yeah. Well, first, you need to take time to celebrate yourself because that's an amazing achievement. So, once you've been selected for a Fulbright Award, we provide a lot of information. Whether it's IIE or the host country, it really depends on if you're a foreign student or a visiting scholar, where that information is coming from. But a lot of information is going to come your way to help you feel prepared. So, we have a lot of orientation materials. We really recommend that all candidates who've been selected for award really carve out time to read all those materials, whether it's an online resource about what it's like to be a Fulbrighter in Australia, or what it's like for a foreign student to be on a US campus. We're providing that information, and we really want to make sure that our candidates absorb that information as much as possible so that they feel ready to embark on what really will be a transformational experience for them.
So they'll definitely get a lot of assistance once they've been chosen and a lot of information. And I do want to play one last tip from Fulbrighter before we go. And this time we're going to hear from Eileen Hale from the US. And she's been a Fulbrighter 3 times. So she's been to Colombia twice, and she's also been to Belize. And here is what she says.
100% apply. Don't hesitate. It's a fabulous, life changing opportunity that opens doors for the rest of your life, that builds connections globally, builds friendships globally. Just apply. It's not necessarily always about your qualifications, it's about the needs of the country and the opportunities at a given point in time. So don't be disillusioned that you'll never get a Fulbright. If you don't get it awarded the first time, try again. There's always another chance. And I tried again after Costa Rica, and then I got into Colombia to work in Colombia. So don't give up. Even if you don't get it the first time, try again.
So that is some great advice. Thank you so much, Eileen. And by the way, you can listen to Eileen talking about her Fulbright experience in Colombia and Belize on the previous episode of the Fulbrighter podcast. So make sure to check it out once you finish listening to this one. So Jordana, do you agree with Eileen? Should people keep on trying if they do not get accepted the first time they apply?
Definitely. We highly recommend applying again. Fulbright is extremely competitive, and we see many successful participants receiving an award their second or third time applying. So everyone should listen to Eileen, as that is excellent advice.
And if you have one piece of advice yourself to offer for people who are listening and they are considering whether to apply, I know that there's a lot of information to take in from this episode. And I definitely want people to come out of it feeling excited about applying and not, scared that maybe the process is too long or something like that. So I do want to hear your piece of advice for people who are listening and are considering whether they should apply or not. What would you say?
Yeah. So I would say it's hard to do one piece of advice, so I may do three. um, uh, Start early. Customize your application to the Fulbright program. So don't recycle old application materials. Of course, you can use components from things you've worked on in the past, but really make sure your application is customized to the Fulbright program. And have other people read your application and provide feedback before you submit. So those would be three kind of major pieces that I think would apply to all sides of the program.
That is great, great advice. And remembering that, some universities, especially universities in the US, will have a dedicated contact point for Fulbright that may help you with your application, or maybe they even have a lot of alumni on campus that you can reach out to. So, well, I do want to thank you all for being here. Thank you, Jordana. Thank you, Kristina. Thank you, Lori. We are coming to the end of this very special episode, and I want to thank again the IIE's team for their participation, Jordanna, Kristina, and Lora. It has been amazing to hear from you. We can't wait to see all of the great applications that are going to be coming once this episode airs. I mean, or so we hope. We hope all of our listeners enjoyed. And if you have any questions for our guests, feel free to email them to fulbrighter@fulbright.org.br, and we'll make sure to send them their way. So thank you. Would you like to say a few words, Jordana, Laura, Kristina?
Thank you so much for having us. It was a pleasure to have this discussion today, and we hope you apply.
And thank you to all the alumni for their wonderful quotes and for continuing to encourage people in our direction. We look forward to reviewing applications.
Thank you all. It's been really a great, great pleasure. And I hope that everybody is considering applying. Do apply. This is a fantastic program. And as Eileen said, it's an opportunity of a lifetime that will open doors for many years. So thank you everyone for your time. Good luck out there with the applications. And I'll see you on the next episode of the Fulbrighter podcast.